what about designers right now who, right, like we said, it is kind of hard to get a job, and maybe they're in that process. Obviously, they should be asking, they should be pursuing, they should be putting themselves out there. But is there anything else they should be doing you think would be valuable for them to like upgrade their skills or up level things? What could they be focusing on during that search process?
Yeah, I think being super open. I mean, I wouldn't have the career I have if I wasn't open. Like, I know there's candidates I meet, they're like, it needs to be in X company at this time, and like, it needs to work on this project. And it's like, that's fine. I think that's an A approach. Another approach is just be completely open to the type of work that you're able to do, because I think when you're starting your career, honestly, maybe not even starting, maybe just like for the rest of your career, like you never know what things lead you to. And for me, like I gave it the example, I graduated school and I was like, oh, I'm not doing well in these interviews. And I can continue and beat my head against the wall and just be sad for a while, or I can continue that and do something else. And my option was like, all right, I'm just going to continue going down the photography route and see what's there and see who I meet and who I network with. And I ended up meeting this director, and he didn't have a need for a designer at all. He didn't even need a photography assistant. But I rented his studio and I saw, what I actually could improve about his business. Like, this is what people care about, revenue, right?
Right.
I was like, okay, he doesn't have a website where people could book online. He doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. And then I just said to him, I just said, hey, why don't you have this? Like, ask. And he'll tell you, well, like I don't really know like who to talk to. And I'm like, I can do it for you. And that was interesting for him. And he's like, well, I don't have a lot of money. I'm like, I'll trade you studio time. And like for me, it's like, I have a portfolio piece. I can say that I had like a real impact to your revenue and your bottom line. That's great for me as a designer. And, I get something in return. Like, I'm always a big fan of, don't work for free, but you can trade.
Love
And
that.
you can trade for things like dinner. It's fine. Like, you don't need to like trade for like huge things, like trade for a paperclip. It doesn't really matter, but it's this idea of like you need to be able to like get something in return so they feel like it's a fair transactional sort of relationship, as opposed to like they're doing you a favor. You never want people to do you a favor in your career. Like, you always want to feel like it's a trade. When they say
Right.
like, another thing they say is like, when you ask for advice, always come back and tell them what happened with the advice that they gave you so that they can feel good. So they want to talk to you again. Like, who wants to be that person that someone always takes from? No one wants that. But if
Right.
you go back to them and say, hey, you gave me that advice last week and here's what happened to my life, they would feel great about that. And all of a sudden, you've traded something, right? You've traded goodwill for their advice.
It's huge. Yeah. Just listening to you, it's so evident that you have a lot of experience, a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge. And, anybody that would talk to you for more than like 30 seconds would realize like, oh, this is a very senior level thinking like person, like very business minded, very revenue driven, like understands that being a creative is not just about art or color palettes or whatever, but it's about like producing something of value, like you were saying. Can you like share a little bit more about like in your experience, like what does it take to make that successful transition from those junior ways of thinking, which I think, I don't know if this was you, but like when I started, all I cared about was like color and texture and like all the design schooly things, right? And I had to get past that to move into some more of those senior levels of thinking. How do people make those transitions? Was there any big markers on the way or experiences that you had that started to shift or change your way of thinking?
I don't know if it's a necessity. I know a couple of designers who are absolutely wonderful. I don't know if I should name him, but like Nick Jones, I think he's an amazing designer. And you're going to meet these types of people throughout your life where they just they just blow you away with the type of work they do, and they only care about design. So I don't know if you need to change that. But if
Okay.
you do, I think it's important to like understand. I mean, this is just user research, right? Like, understand who you're serving. Like, we are in a serving job. This is a service job. We're like waiters or waitresses, right?
Hmm.
And like, who's your client? What do they want? What do they care about? Like, this is a value match, right? So I just happen to like find interesting people who also care about profit and revenue. But there are other people who hire you. Like a good example is A24. They don't have a lot of money to pay their creative team, but they have the same values of the creative team. And clearly, they can convince a lot of creatives to work for them for less than their market rate. Now, why is that? It's because they have a real value alignment where they really appreciate what you offer, and you understand implicitly like what they're kind of looking for. So you have to really understand your client here, right? So if your personality is like, or if you want to shift your personality to a little bit more revenue driven, go hang out with people who are revenue driven. Like go learn their language, go see what they're looking at every day. Like you just, if you want to learn about enterprise, go to one of those boring enterprise conferences and sit in on literally every talk they do. And in like 2 days, you're going to understand what they're talking about. You're going to understand their language. You can even ask them while they're there. Like, I don't know what go to market strategy means. What does that mean? And people would be happy to talk your head off about everything they know. People love that. Like, that's the one thing you could bank on, that they love talking about the things that they care about. And so, get out there. If you want to shift your personality, go talk to the people who are exactly like that.